I'm here to help women reset and rewild, to embrace and prioritize the pauses in order to reclaim their peace and power. I'm Dr. Michelle Peris, director of the Poppy Clinic and founder and CEO of the Wild Collective. As a disruptor, naturopathic doctor, wife, and mama, I've created a global movement and sacred space for women to rise together. Here, you'll break through limitations, romanticize your life, and unlock the magic of your divine feminine power. My life's work is rooted in community, lifting women into their most powerful, authentic selves, while empowering clinicians to elevate their practices with a transformational, community-driven model. I lead a thriving, passion-fueled business and naturopathic practice brimming with abundance, where I can guide women to invigorate their lives through sisterhood and elevate healthcare with a cutting-edge transformational approach. I've witnessed firsthand in my practice how this model sparks consistent health transformation, creates flourishing communities, and brings profitable success. You can have it all, a life filled with abundance, contagious joy, and untethered potential. So pull up a seat. It's time to pour into yourself and tap into your intuition and design a life that's wild, free, and uniquely yours. And I'm going to show you how. This is Wild Medicine. All right, welcome back to another episode of Wild Medicine. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Peris, and I'm realizing I'm getting far too casual on Casual Fridays. If you're watching this on YouTube, I've been rocking the same hoodie for a month. Anyways, there's just something very freeing about knowing who you are and not needing to dress a certain way, you know? Anyways, this is nothing what the podcast has to do about, so I apologize for the digression, but I'm laughing at myself because just before I hit record, I saw my last solo recording and I'm wearing the same thing. Anyways, moving on to more important things. This podcast has always been, a beautiful blend of bringing great conversations, thought-provoking ideas, and really a way to bring listeners into my intimate world of everything that I'm up to. In the pursuit of a beautiful, vibrant life, one that is calibrated to your own rewilding and deep knowing and intuition to how to navigate this world more confidently and how to advocate for your health. One of the biggest changes I've made in the last year is going back to private practice and working with patients in a very specific capacity around metabolic health. And so I thought I would share more about metabolic health and what that is and what that means and what it doesn't mean, and how I'm supporting patients, because it feels really good to be supporting people in this capacity. I got into health because I wanted to be of service. I wanted to help. It was truly through my own healing efforts that I figured out how powerful food and nourishment really was. I didn't feel unwell when I discovered that, but man, did I feel so much better when I began eating anti-inflammatory for myself and really starting to get attuned to what energy is and how I wanted to feel in my body and how I no longer wanted to feel. And when I had that information, that was ultimately what brought me to naturopathic medicine, wanting to do that for others in an empowered fashion. Because I felt like, I didn't know any of this information and I wanted more people to know about it once I had discovered it. And I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I just didn't know how. And, it's just cool how it all unfolds. And so I found myself back in clinical practice because I felt really called to support patients in a healing journey that was instrumental for me reclaiming my health and vibrancy. Going through a really bad burnout and feeling like everything was falling apart was a very painful moment in my life. And one of the most important things that had happened for me was to really reclaim my own metabolic health and reclaim my nourishment, feel empowered in my nourishment, finally feel peace in my body, finally feel like I understood and high motivation to strength train and be the strongest version of myself. And I sat with that healing journey for a while because you want to make sure that you're not doing anything flippant and out of integrity. Like, just because it worked for you, will it work for others, And it grew, that like little whisper grew into like, no, I need to figure out how I can make this happen. And I eventually found myself back in my practice in a micro capacity. It's not everything I do, but it's a beautiful part of how I'm of service. And, I really am clear about that now. I have 3 ways I support people in a business capacity, in a service, in a work capacity. A naturopathic doctor who supports patients in metabolic health. I'm a facilitator of women in Wild Circles, in the Wild Collective, and I support clinicians. And I support clinicians who crave to figure out an unconventional way to deliver health information, to empower the masses and make a meaningful difference in the healthcare space. Metabolic health in particular is one area where we're seeing a tidal wave of individuals who are struggling and suffering and may not have access to resources and a system that is ill-equipped to support the volume of that. And so here I am supporting patients once again and delightfully, deliriously happy doing it. And so why is that? Let's talk about what I'm going to cover in this next episode. We're really going to go into this whole metabolism myth, what's really happening and what we need to do to reset ourselves for vibrant health. Metabolism is confusing and a very misunderstood topic in health. And I think there's, the misconception that your metabolism slows as you age is one we all hold on to. And I think we have opinions about what tests need to be run and how we need to best address this. And then we end up feeling broken. You're not, but feeling broken, like we don't know what else to do and we feel very frustrated. So I'm hoping to create some clarity around these pieces today and give you some direction about resources available to you or conversations you could be having with your healthcare providers in order to really reclaim your health. I'm going to talk about what metabolic health actually is. Metabolic disease is quite prevalent, as I was just saying, in the US, and I would say it's likely to mirror all of North America. 80% of US adults are metabolically unhealthy, meaning that they actually hold more fat on their body than they do muscle mass, or there's a propensity to insulin resistance or blood sugar imbalances or really high inflammation, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline. There's a lot happening. And this imbalance is what is causing a lot of dis-ease in our body. We're going to talk about the idea of metabolism automatically slowing as we age as being false, and what we're actually seeing in the research and data and how to best address this and what's really happening in your body so that you have a good understanding, so we can have a better, more evolved conversation in our doctor's offices, and how a reset can be a game changer for some. Not all, but some, for sure. What is metabolic health? Okay. So when we are looking at metabolic health, we are understanding our blood sugar balance, our energy production, our fat metabolism, our muscle mass, and our inflammation control. Metabolic disease, often through testing, is looking at your level of dysglycemia, so your level of insulin resistance or risk to diabetes development. We are looking at your cardiometabolic markers, things like your lipid panel. We're also looking at liver function. We're looking at blood sugar balance, as I said, and inflammation markers. And through that data, we get a really good idea of how much or what is going on with respect to your metabolic health. We have a really cool tool in our clinic with an in-body composition analyzer where we're going a little bit deeper and understanding the body composition. How much muscle do you hold relative to fat, relative to your whole body weight? Probably by now you have some semblance of awareness that our BMI, our body mass index, is a poor indicator of overall health and risk factors for disease.
It's just a really poor metric. If we don't understand what kind of tissue, body composition you're holding, we really don't know what the risk factors are with respect to your metabolic health. So when we put this information together, when we understand your labs, when we understand your body composition, we understand your level of visceral fat, we can then start to have a really high-level conversation, elevated conversation on your risk factors long-term, on your longevity, on your current health status, your capacity for exercise and nutrition, and what we can do about it. So we want to garner a better baseline. And so if metabolic health is something that you're hearing a lot about or you're questioning in for yourself, then there is some really crucial blood work that you can do. You can get our lab guide to help guide that conversation. We can look at protein in our diet, which we've covered here many times. We have a protein calculator online that you could be using as a reference point. And you can look for tools like an in-body composition analyzer so that you can get better information than just your BMI, which is a really, really poor marker of overall health and well-being.
Do you feel confused about what tests to ask for and how to interpret them? Because everyone keeps telling you everything looks fine, but you don't feel fine. We see you, and we have created a guide for that. I understand that women want to participate and take an active role in their health. And one way we can do that is starting to advocate for better, more comprehensive testing, but then also be able to be part of the conversation, whether or not those labs are within optimal range, not just within normal ranges. We have a guide, a lab test guide that walks you through the most common tests that can be done annually that will help you start to build this beautiful health binder on yourself so that you can co-create your health and you can start to see if imbalances arise and how to work with your health professionals in order to make a strategic plan to move the needle forward in our health. One of the most common things that are missed in the healthcare space, especially when we're feeling off, is this higher level conversation around more integrative testing and optimal ranges to help you feel your best. So no longer feel mystified. Go download our free lab test guide. The link is in the show notes, and use it to have more strategic and effective conversations with your health professionals. Enjoy.
When we're talking about metabolic health in particular, so not only are we looking at labs, we're looking at other health concerns and issues that might be coming up. So do you have insulin resistance? This can be talked through your blood work. Do you hold belly fat? There is an increased risk for sure, especially for perimenopausal, menopausal women. As our estrogen declines, we see that there's a redistribution of mass on our body, and even fat deposition shifts from our lower half of our body, our hips and thighs, to our abdomen. So increase in belly fat is what a lot of my patients will report first seeing and being bothered by that. Increase in cravings, especially if we have cravings at night or we're not eating properly throughout the day. Most patients are vastly deficient in protein, and then that leading them at higher risk for wanting to late night snack. And we tend to have really poor nutritional boundaries in the evening, especially if we are overwhelmed, stressed, dysregulated, and emotional. So we tend to emotionally eat in the evening if we're not properly attuned and nor properly nourishing ourselves earlier in the day. If we're feeling fatigued frequently, poor sleep habits, if you've been told you have an increased risk of diabetes, heart disease, or cognitive decline, these are things you want to consider around metabolic health as well. Okay, so diving a little deeper on this topic, let's first, debunk the myth that our metabolism is actually slowing down as we age. What the research actually says is that our metabolism is relatively stable between the ages of 20 to 60. So for anyone saying, or feeling like their metabolism has shifted, especially in that perimenopause, menopausal state, that's actually not what the research is noticing. That's not the root cause. And this is the thing about needing to understand this better, because as a naturopathic doctor, we are really about creating clarity about root cause medicine, like what is at the root of what is going on. And we want to bust this myth. I was trying to like figure out how to say that, because if we keep holding on to this idea that our metabolism is slowing, then we feel a victim to circumstance. What's actually happening is that there is a real shift in body composition, and there's an acceleration, unless we're doing something actively about this, there's an acceleration of fat deposition and a increased loss of muscle. And if you look at any of the graphs of menopause and women's bone mass and muscle mass as we age, unless we're doing something, it's on a really rapid decline every decade we're alive. So this is where we really need to call ourselves up and hold ourselves to a higher standard of what preventative healthcare actually is. Because if we're on the pursuit of better metabolic health and aging and longevity, and we all should be, then we need to take radical responsibility for our lifestyle habits. And this is something I feel like now, having lived what feels like 18 lives and being back in clinical practice, I feel like I have a responsibility to be very honest with my patients from a place of generosity and compassion and love, and very honest. And so I am unapologetic about if we are looking for a quick fix, if we are looking for the latest and greatest supplement that is going to do all the things, like it's such a dangerous place being on social media with health, because there are many people online that would have you believe that there is a product or a single thing that we can do to shift our metabolic health. And that's really not true. It isn't true. And we can't out supplement a poor lifestyle. And so if you're not willing to get really honest about your mindset and the thoughts you think and your capacity for investing in community and creating better support for yourself and asking for help, if you're not ready to get radically honest about what's on your plate and how to learn how to nourish yourself, if you're not getting honest about, the importance of walking and moving your body and strength training a couple times a week, then, it's not going to work, right? And so I am really serious at this point. I am about results for my patients. I want the best for them. And I'm really honest. And, I'm sure there's a love-hate relationship with that. But I think long-term, people will be grateful for my honesty and my level of holding them to a standard that is honest and generous and kind, in the sense that we can no longer tolerate feeling mystified or feeling a victim to circumstance or hoping that there's this like single thing that's going to radically change our health. It's not true. We have to take radical responsibility for our lifestyle, our habits, the thoughts that we think, and the things that we do consistently. With every day that I am gifted on this earth, I am more and more grateful for the idea of progress, not perfection. This is not about being perfect. You're going to get it wrong. There are going to be days that are going to be more emotional, or you're going to get hijacked, or you're going to feel tempted, and those are just blips. As long as we're continually progressing forward, we are making amazing shifts in our health long term. And the return on investment of that is massive. I think for a lot of us, we do have this perfectionistic quality from being high achieving, gold star chasing humans growing up. And so it's like an all or none mentality. And we really need to create some honesty with that too. So when we get really honest, fundamentally, I am about helping people get attuned to better foundational health. Absolutely. The thoughts that you think, your lifestyle habits, your sleep patterns, your movement style, what's on your plate, and really understanding that. And for me, as someone who actually was a trained naturopathic doctor who still gained 30 pounds in her burnout and felt totally mystified by my body, chasing latest and greatest trends like intermittent fasting, there were things I was like, how did this happen? And then a reset changed the game for me. And bless the human who supported me on that. She knows who she is. I feel like I got my life back, and I'm incredibly and forever grateful for her, because it changed everything for me. And I, for the first time in my life, and I have a history of being really hard on myself, always struggling with my physical appearance. And I, for the first time in my life, felt peaceful. And I had a ton of inflammation and allergies, and I didn't have a good handle on that either as a naturopathic doctor. Burnout being the major feeder to the imbalance of all of that, and what I tolerated for myself. And that's why I'm really radically honest. This is like I'm going all over the place, but I had to make some serious changes to my lifestyle to maintain my health. It wasn't going to be, did a reset and went back to how I was living, and I would have an expectation that that vessel that had healed could hold the imbalances of what created the accumulation of chaos and body mass in the first place. Both those things can't coexist. What got you here won't get you there. And so I need my patients to be really honest about that. And I'm really clear about that. I'm not for a person who's unwilling to look at those parts of themselves and, be imperfectly move through that chaos and struggle. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need a willingness to change. If you want to hold on to your excuses or old habits or old tendencies, I'm probably not the right fit for you, because I am going to speak to it and I'm going to hold that, and I'm going to be kind and very, very caring about what we're really trying to do here, because I held myself to the same standards, and I hold better health and greater muscle mass and lowered inflammation as a result to those same standards. And I'm glad about that. I think there was people pleasing in my prior career as a naturopathic doctor that I just can't do anymore, because it is doing myself and my patients a disservice by not being very honest about what is important with respect to health reclamation and maintaining a vibrancy and capacity to thrive in your health. Okay, so when we look at our lifestyle habits, the thoughts that we think are, the foundational pieces, these are going to be really important predictors of our metabolic health. In fact, the most important predictors. Since we know that it's not actually that your metabolism slows down as you age, that there are factors like your muscle mass, your lifestyle changes, and hormonal shifts that are contributing, then we must address all of these pieces. Also, chronic stress, which is what I certainly attribute my metabolic dis-ease to, poor sleep, nutrient deficiencies, inflammation, and how all of these impact metabolic health. And then I would further that in our poor boundary holding, our people-pleasing tendencies, our really what is the right word? Well, I often call it stinking thinking, but like the thoughts that we hold that are no longer serving us, that we're not worthy, that that it's going to be too hard, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of that level of self-love or self-trust. All of those factors, our inability to hold boundaries, those are all going to perpetuate whether or not we have vibrant health or are leading ourselves towards more metabolic dysfunction. And this is why we have to be careful about how often we say that all of our symptoms are attributed to perimenopause or menopause, because it could be the root, or it could be that there are so many other metabolic factors at play that we actually need to rule out first, right? Or concurrent. So the role of our muscle in metabolism, our muscle is a key metric to longevity. We need muscle. We need muscle to stay and remain a metabolic machine. To have the metabolism in your 60s as you did in 20 is directly correlated to how much muscle mass you hold, which is why an in-body composition analyzer is essential in understanding. And what's really interesting is that we can also see how even our body is left and right, but where our muscle mass is distributed. And, one of the biggest factors for quality of life as women age is our fracture risk. And if we have higher upper body and trunk strength, which most of my patients do, and are under muscled in our legs, which most of my patients are, our risk of falling is a lot higher, right? We're top heavy. And as we age, our agility declines unless we're doing something about it. And so you can see how all of these factors that are not being talked about are critically important for an aging perspective. We also do grip strength, which is directly correlated to longevity. So our risk of sarcopenia or muscle loss is an independent risk factor for your longevity or predictor. And this information is critically important because your muscle is your most metabolically active tissue in the body. It burns, I'm going to say, upwards of 9 calories as compared to 2 to 4. I'm, making up numbers a little bit. I apologize, but they're relative to the truth, relative to what our fat burns. Okay, so it's metabolically much more active. So the more muscle you hold, the higher your metabolism. And losing muscle mass, which unless we are doing something strategic and intentional as we age, we are continually losing muscle mass. Our muscle mass peaks around the age of 20, in our 20s. And then it's on a decline unless we're actively pursuing muscle mass retention or hypertrophy, like gains. Strength training is our metabolic booster, is what helps us to build muscle and maintain muscle and keep our metabolic tissue active. We also really want to look at insulin resistance and inflammation, two areas where I see are drastically improved with our metabolic reset program. Years of stress perpetuate this problem. So our stress hormone cortisol works very closely and harmon with our insulin. So as our cortisol rises, insulin rises to respond to that stressor. What a big miscommunication in the body is that we think our body is working against us. It's betraying us. I felt that. And I know that this, what I'm about to say to be true. But when things aren't aligning, we really want to make our body wrong for this happening, not our habits and lifestyle. Anyways, calling myself out on that one. When we tolerate a level of stress for ourselves and our body is in survival mode all the time, which I can tell you it's taken me years to calibrate from that and be able to find safety in the parasympathetic mode, then your cortisol is always revving, right? Until it can't, but it is stimulated. And I think what people find really interesting when I talk about this in Wild Collective is, our body doesn't have a capacity to determine how stressful the stressor is. It just interprets stress and it responds accordingly. So if you're very quick to interpreting a situation as stressful, and I say this like very tongue in cheek in a Wild Collective circle because I want to drive the point home to help them start to attune to that this isn't harmless. If we allow our thoughts to just perpetuate all day, I mean, there's so much research to support this, even from a social capacity, that if you will be more stressed if you consider yourself higher on the social ladder, because you have a greater distance to fall when you don't feel socially connected, meaning you'll interpret social stress in situations a lot higher than someone else who doesn't score themselves as high on the social hierarchy. So this popularity thing, which I was obsessed with as a little kid, is a major stress predictor. And what we don't understand is what is happening in our brain and perpetuating the stories. This is why mindset is so important. Our body assumes that is real because it's happening in the body. So whether a situation is perceived or actual, we're having a stress response to it. So what I say to women in the Wild Circle is, whether or not you have a paper cut or you're being fired from your job, if you interpret that as a stressful situation, your body is going to secrete cortisol in response to the stressor. Okay. So there isn't like discernment of your body to be like, this is a paper cut. I'm only going to secrete this many cc's of cortisol, making stuff up. It doesn't work like that. Stress is stress is stress is stress. So our job is to understand and become attuned to what we interpret as stress and have strategies to help combat that. And usually for most patients, it's not a supplement. It's actually doing less and getting comfortable doing less and being less achievement oriented and allowing for white space and boredom to persist. It has for me. So when we are in a state of fight or flight and chronic stress, which most of us are because we live in a very unnatural world, from the light exposure we have to the excessive amount of calories we can be exposed to the level of access we have to feeling unworthy with social media, the unhealthy boundaries we hold where people can get a hold of you at any given time. All of that perpetuates a state of chronic stress. And when there's chronic stress and your body is pumping cortisol, your body's going to pump out insulin as a response to that in order to create, to manage the stress and make sure that there's enough glucose in the system to escape the crisis. And so when we're in a perpetual state of crisis, you can see how much this is going to contribute to metabolic dis-ease or dysfunction. So when we check patients' HbA1c, which is our long-term blood sugar management marker, and their insulin their insulin levels and their blood glucose levels, and we look at those fasted, then we can start to interpret the level of severity of the situation. How much dysglycemia or insulin resistant is happening in this individual's body, and then talking through years of poor nutrition habits and eating processed foods and calorically dense foods that are nutrient depleted, right? So we're feeling starving, yet we're eating calories. Our inability to stabilize our blood sugar. No one really taught us about protein adequacy, and protein was almost vilified for the last few years, decades, let's say decades. It's having a real moment right now, which is exciting, but our bodies always needed this much protein. But we really do not eat enough protein to balance blood sugar levels, and we tend to overeat carbohydrates, and that spikes our blood sugar, and then we crash as a result, and we have this instability, and this creates a very stressed state, and it feels exhausting, and it feels very uncomfortable. And so then we keep eating to try and satiate that feeling. So understanding that better is going to be very important. But then also, as we age, our hormones shift. Men notice a decline in their testosterone. Women, the decline in our estrogen really impacts our muscle mass health. It impacts our fat redistribution. That's where we see it move from the lower body, hips and thighs, up into the abdomen. Our stress tends to not get better because we tend to, unless we're checking ourselves and checking our mindset and checking our ability to set healthy boundaries and say no, we get worse. We just keep saying yes to all the things, and really, really struggling with that and feel very, very stressed and depleted. Thyroid hormones can also be playing a role. They can be playing a role. We tend to think they are the predictor of metabolic health. It's not, but it is a predictor. And so understanding all of this beautiful orchestration of how our body is actually trying to support us. This is the confusion. Your body is responding to what is going on, and it's trying to create some homeostatic state. And so we also need to shift our thinking around this about it. Our body loves you, and it's responding to the stimulus, and it's doing its best to be of service to you. And so often we have to do less. And my coach would say, deload the bar, right? So if you are, lifting at the gym, it's not always about adding more weights. Some circumstances, many circumstances, we would actually get more gains by taking weight off the bar. We would actually improve our health by taking things off of the calendar, doing less, setting healthier boundaries, not checking your emails after certain times, not being exposed to blue light after certain times, putting yourself to bed at the same time every night, eating the same times throughout the day to create some predictability and safety. Your body needs to feel safe first and foremost. And we get this cascade of inflammation and blood sugar dysregulation and stress and hormonal dysfunction when we keep pushing beyond our capacity. And this is truly what happened to me. This is quintessentially what happened, and I felt broken. I wasn't, but that is how I felt. And I felt betrayed by my body. And I don't think a reset is for everyone. I don't think not everybody likes the idea of, radically shifting things up for a period of time to let information fall and learn and have a moment of pause and clarity. But for some of us, it is the only way through. And for me, it was life-changing because I understood everything after that experience. I knew exactly what I had put on my plate that was no longer serving me. I knew exactly what lifestyle habits were getting in my way. I knew exactly why my sleep patterns had gotten the way that they had gotten and why that led me to where it led. There was no more mystery. It was clear. I had that information through being attuned to my body's signals. And I think for myself and people like me, when we are stuck in the hamster wheel of the everyday pace, it is very hard to have that level of clarity and discernment because you're stuck in the chaos. And for me, a reset is like, I'm taking a break from all of this. I'm going to see where all the cards land, and then I'm going to figure this out. I need a break, just like a vacation. It's like a life vacation. I can't keep perpetuating and engaging in life in this way, I need a pause. And for me, a reset is a fundamental pause to allow me to calibrate to truth and then start to figure out where I can take things off and what things I need to be doing in order to maintain the level of peace and harmony and vibrancy that I have acquired through this reset. Okay, so the power of a metabolic reset. Like I said, this is not a hack. This is a moment to let your cortisol and insulin and inflammation fall. Right? It's just like this moment of like, I intentionally take pauses and let it be quiet on purpose because that's literally how it felt in my body. It was like, just quiet. And then I could think. I was eating really terribly late at night and I was working around the clock and my cortisol was jacked. And then I would try and fall asleep in that state. And then I'd wake up more tired. And then I would skip workouts because I was so tired. And then I would not permit breaks in my day because I was too busy people pleasing and achieving who knows what and sacrificing my own bodily functions as a way to be of service in quotations to others and really harming myself. And I call this out because I serve individuals just like me because they hear these parts of my story and they come into my office and they're like, I relate to your story. I saw a picture of myself. I didn't recognize myself. I stay up way too late, like midnight, and work and then expect myself to fall asleep. I eat really crappy foods at night because I feel really unhappy with my life. I have no breathing room. I feel like I'm suffocating. And I eat chocolate to try and make myself feel better. And I watch really crappy shows to try and distract or numb out, right? I drink the extra glass of wine, whatever it is. I tell the story like it is because I know I'm not alone in this. And there are people who need to hear this so that they know that when they are ready, it doesn't have to be like this. And you need to be radically honest about the thoughts that you think, the life that you're living, the food on your plate, and your capacity for movement. There is no supplement and there is no reset that can fix this if you're not willing to make the long-term change. A reset is a moment. It is the first step in long-term shifts. It will be like the supplement if you're unwilling to make change, for sure. And I try to discern that level of readiness in my patients and be very, very honest about that. Like if you're not ready to actually start strength training, if you're not ready to actually build your plate differently, if you're not ready to honor your boundaries and shift your mindset and listen to the mindset calls, and if you're not ready to get honest about what's not working for you, then this is probably not the experience for you. And I'm definitely not the practitioner for you. But if it is, then we are going to have a lot of fun. And it is going to be very rewarding for you. And it's going to feel wonderful. And it's going to really help you reclaim health and your motivation to become the strongest version of yourself. And that is really fun.
This episode is brought to you by the Poppy Clinic. If you're looking for an integrative approach, our team of naturopathic doctors is there to support you every step of the way. Whether you're looking to learn more about period literacy or hormone balance for your tweens and teens, or you're looking to optimize fertility during that perinatal and postpartum phase, or maybe you're at the phase where you want to start having a conversation around perimenopause and menopause, or even metabolic health, we have a naturopathic doctor for you, providing support with menopause hormone therapy, labs, an integrative, customized approach, talking about nutrition and movement, and even IV vitamin therapy. There is something here for you. So if you're looking for a more in-depth conversation, individualized approach, health education and empowerment, the Poppy Clinic is here for you. If you want to go learn more, check us out at Poppy Clinic.
Okay, so when we shift our diet up, when we really become protein focused, when we eliminate foods, processed foods and foods that do not serve us, we have the opportunity to improve our insulin sensitivity and our blood sugar balance, and we get to physically experience what that feels like. I really strongly encourage that people slow down and they just like sleep and do less during this time, because there's going to be lots of time and tons of energy on the other side to be moving and expanding. But if what you need is to just get quiet and honest, then that's all you're going to do. And you're going to see how you feel when you eat protein centric and whole foods, and when you don't snack in the evening, and when you go to bed on time, and right, you are going to learn and what that feels like and how your body speaks to you. And as that inflammation begins to fall, you will feel, do I feel more mentally clear? Is this how I would like to live my life? Am I prepared to build a plate that's going to honor the benefits that I've achieved through this? Do I even actually have cravings, or am I an emotional eater? Do I have heart hunger or head hunger? I'm eating because I should. I'm actually not hungry. All of these things that come up that we get to sit with and rebuild a metabolic flexibility. I'm really proud that we see a reduction in visceral fat, which is the harmful fat that shortens our life expectancy around our vital organs, that is very pro-inflammatory. I've seen reversal of diabetic states, pre-diabetic states. We've seen improvements in blood pressure, resolution of sleep apnea, reduction in joint pain, increased vibrancy and mental clarity and productivity. My patients in maintenance are like so motivated. They get the weighted vest. They build pounds of muscle in our program. We can see that through our in-body composition analyzer. And we see these beautiful shifts happening and a really high motivation to maintain the changes that they've achieved through a reset. So the pillars of a metabolic reset are being protein first in our nutrition, really learning to eat what I call primally, like how we're actually wired to eat, right? And when we eat this way, we get to experience how our body feels. And you get to be the discerner of that. Do I feel energized? Do I feel clearer? Do I feel motivated? Do I feel happier? Do I feel calmer, more peaceful, less anxious, less volatile from having a reduction in blood sugar spikes and crashes, right? So you get to see this unfold for yourself and get this beautiful biofeedback on yourself. It is a homecoming of, if I eat this way, how do I feel? How do I experience this? Really coming back to strength training and movement for metabolic activation. We talk about walking as being one of our most powerful fat burners. We talk about strength training. We talk about protein adequacy and building those two pieces in, and how to feed our muscle and how to grow muscle and how to recover appropriately. We talk about meal timing and restoring metabolic flexibility. There's so many patients, and myself included when I started this journey, that don't feel hungry in the morning. You are a metabolic machine. You should be hungry after sleeping. Breakfast is breaking your fast. You should have been fasting. You're like ravenous. Now when I wake up, I'm like, I'm ready to eat. Like, I am excited for breakfast, right? So that was not what I was like at the peak of my burnout and what things look like prior to my reset. Understanding stress and sleep optimization, right? Really creating safety. Our body needs to feel safe to heal. It needs to feel safe to shed fat. It needs to feel safe to maintain the health reclaimed, right? We can't live a life of chaos and high stress and sleep imbalances or disturbances and expect that our body can heal and stay healthy. It cannot. We have to be really cautious about the thoughts that we think, and taking radical responsibility for that. My husband always says to me, we can't control our first thought, but we can control our next action, our first action, our first response. So, being a patterned negative thinker, it can creep up. And now I can catch myself because I've sat with those parts of myself. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this tape. It's not real. I talk to a lot of patients that when we are about to change, when you're leaving what we call certainty, it feels like death, feels wrong. It feels like betrayal. It's not, but it feels that way. If you've tolerated living in a level of anxiety or tension or stress, choosing to do less, choosing to say no, choosing boredom is going to feel wrong because it's not patterned yet. So when you say it out loud, you're like, no, of course I'm creating calm by doing less. Of course I'm creating calm by saying no. But when I first do it, it's going to feel wrong. And it's who you're going to be consistently enough to withstand the pressure of that for long-term change. And so we're really starting to cultivate healthier thinking and healthier levels of self-trust and integrity with your word. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. What you learn by doing that, showing up in any small capacity, is that your word matters to you. And when it does, all of a sudden you're able to start showing up for yourself and not betraying yourself and sabotaging yourself in the evening, right? And then we can talk about targeted supplementation. Now, It says in brackets, if needed, and only if needed. Done are the days where I am talking about supplements with patients. I talk about some, I do, and there's a time and a place, but we can't out supplement a poor diet and lifestyle. Fundamentals first, foundation first. We can talk about supplements after. If you're not willing to do the things that actually meaningfully, consistently build health, there's no supplement in the world that can out supplement poor lifestyle habits. You just can't do it. It's just, don't lie to yourself. Don't buy the skinny tea online. Don't do it. Abort. Understand that it is foundations first. It's lifestyle first. Supplements second. Supplements were meant to supplement a lifestyle and nutritional pattern, right? So we've really got to look at those pieces first. Are you getting enough protein throughout the day? Are you moving your body? Are you going to bed at a reasonable time? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you managing stress? Are you actively, in most cases, trying to do less? I said it on the podcast in January. I deloaded the bar so much that I felt bored in January. And it's taken years to be more comfortable with that. Old Michelle would have not been okay with that. I would have filled my time. I would have let the narrative drive and be like, this is wrong. I'm doing something bad. And in January, I was like, no, it's been years. And I think that's the honesty of this. Like, a reset is like the first jumping off point, but it takes time. It takes years to get you to burnout or to that level of disease. It takes time to untether and unravel from that. And so in January, I truly trusted the boredom. All of a sudden, I started seeing all this motivation and beauty unfold and things working out. Like, the surrender was working, like really working. There's so many years I said it, but did not believe it because it was so scary. It was such a betrayal to everything that I had done up until that point. Sometimes healing feels wrong, but when you say it out loud, intellectually, you know it's right. So you've got to trust. You are flexing a foreign muscle. And just like how you have to do bicep curls to build your bicep, you've got to do things that feel hard and foreign in the beginning before they become your new habituated way of living. And when we do all these pieces, I think you really start to see meaningful change. And I love my job. I adore working with my patients. It is so delightful to watch people actually get results and then have the motivation and belief in themselves that they can do this, that they know how to confidently build their plate, that they know how to confidently move their body and manage their stress and lifestyle habits to be in accordance with feeling good because they feel worthy of it. They maybe know they're hiding. I don't think they understood the degree of how much that was affecting their quality of life. And to watch them thrive and feel good about themselves and beautiful and sexy and alive and saying yes to things and trying new things. And it's so wonderful. And I am so grateful. And every day I pretty much go home, I'm teary, feeling like I am so grateful for the work that I get to do with the incredible people who choose themselves. People will say, thank you for helping me. I really don't accept that. Not because I have problems or self-worth issues. It's not true. What we need to realize is there's tons of information out there. You could do this. You don't need me. You could do this in many ways. But when you decide to go all in on yourself and trust yourself and you do the work and you get the results, you get to own the success of that. It's because of you and your efforts that you get to reclaim your health. So I also don't accept when things don't work for people. I don't accept their achievements either. That's all theirs. That's their journey. I'm grateful to be a facilitator in that healing and hold space, but the success is theirs. The more that they own that for themselves, the more that they can trust that they can do this for themselves day in and day out and be the most vibrant and healthy version of themselves. And so I want to say this to you. Your metabolism, it isn't broken. It's adaptable. And if it's feeling broken, then you might need to have a conversation about where it's at through proper testing and investigation and what meaningful changes you can start to do to reclaim health and build and feed muscle, your metabolic machine. That this is not an age problem. It's a lifestyle and foundational health problem. And we need to get honest about that. And that if you're feeling stuck and you're in Ontario and you feel like a reset might be something you want to consider, then check us out. You can always send me a DM on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Peris. I'm always happy to respond to you. We have a live masterclass coming up, and we'll put the link to register in the show notes. And we have access to resources that if you reach out to me, I'll send them to you so you can educate yourself about our process and see if it works for you. And if it does, then you can apply and we can get started. This was the very thing that helped me reclaim my energy and feel vibrant and peaceful and empowered. And I, like everything, when I discovered the magic and power of community, I bring that to my community because I feel I have a due diligence and a responsibility to help those in my world have the same level of health and success and fulfillment and satisfaction that I've achieved. And if I've done that for people, then I feel very grateful and honored. And I will continue to put information out there so that you know what's possible for you. If you're feeling stuck, you can do something about it, and you are not a victim to your circumstance. And when you're ready, it gets to be so wonderful. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing what I'm up to in my clinical practice, and give me feedback. Please find me on Instagram, and let's until next week, stay wild.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Wild Medicine. I am so grateful to have you here, and I hope you're feeling inspired and empowered. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more incredible women just like you. And before you go, quick reminder, the information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition. Please consult with your healthcare provider for personalized advice and care. And if you're ready to take inspired action and dive deeper into your own health journey, please visit us at poppyclinic.com. Let's rewild and reset your health together.